Hi friends, thank you so much for joining me in this video. It's been a long time. I'm so happy to meet you again through this format. The previous video was about self-image, and I'm so glad that you watched that in the YouTube channel. And I thought in this month of November, today is 1st of November 2017, so I thought of giving a video on basic virtues that are supposed to be developed in the children. You might be wondering why I'm speaking about the virtues, because in the coming week I'm moving to a school in Kanyakumari district where I'll be speaking about virtues. I'm going to meet the parents of the children. I'm also going to meet the faculty members, and I'm going to give them how to build on the virtues. So this video has got dual advantage with it, attached with it. The first advantage is I can give this video to those parents and the faculty members, and the next one is I can give you an insight if you are a father, a mother, or if you are a senior cousin in your family, or if you're a caretaker of some of the children, if you're a caretaker of some of the teenagers in your family, you can be really on the upfront to teach them some of the virtues. You know, it has to happen during the 3rd grade of a kid, but unfortunately we are seeing so many scenarios happening in our society as a reflection of not having enough virtues instilled into the mind of the children. So not children per se, virtues can be instilled in any format of people. I mean, you can instill virtues in adolescent people, you can instill virtues in adults, you can also instill virtues in the senior citizen people if they are ready to listen to what you're saying. So we are going to see 30 virtues, the 30 important virtues that would really take your life in a smooth regard. Maybe these 30 virtues will be acting as a lubrication for moving on with the wheels of your life vehicle. So I'm not going to spend too much of time in each virtue. The interesting fact about virtues is that when you listen to a particular virtue, your mind immediately says that, yeah, I heard about it. This is very easy, man. I have listened to it. I have known this. I have been having this. Likewise, you will have lots of impressions into the mind. But only little you will understand that understanding has got a very big difference with the practice. You know these concepts, but are you really practicing that? That's a big question here. So let's move on into the journey of looking into those 30 virtues. The first virtue is kindness. You know, before I get into this scenario, I would like to ask you to set a mind frame for listening to this video, listening to the ideas of this video. Basically, every time whenever I speak about one particular virtue, ask yourself 2 questions. Question number 1, do I really have this? Question number 2, how can I instill this with the others? Because if I am trying to instill this virtue with the others, classroom teaching and lecturing will not be happening properly. Exclusively when you're speaking to the children, exclusively when you're trying to instill this to the college students or any form of adult people, you require a lot of examples to say this, right? So maybe I am not asking you to get into the moral stories section and get some Aesop stories and ancient stories to take classes to the people. Nobody is definitely going to listen to you when you are speaking on that fashion. But maybe you can practice, you can display your character and behavior on that manner, and people will understand how strong you are in terms of the virtue, right? Now coming back, the first virtue is kindness. Have you heard about the daily act of small kindness? Today we are filled up with lots of stringent lifestyles, and we are filled up with lots of technological aid. Every minute somebody is trying to capture our attention with the apps that you have in your phone, with the number of telephone calls that you're receiving over your phone, with the number of emails that you receive on your laptop, all that. But how many times do you think on a day basis you are kind to someone? So the first and foremost virtue. See, I'm a soft skills trainer, you know me. I mean, some of the people who are watching this video might be knowing me. Many of you might not be knowing me, but the people who don't know me, I would like to tell you I'm a soft skills trainer. Training the people on soft skills and giving them life skills training happens to be nothing unless you tell them about virtue development in their mind, right? So the first one is kindness. What kind of activity you are doing really on a daily basis that is bringing you the label that this guy is a kind person, this girl is a kind person. What kind of activity you are doing? So kindness is more genetic in nature. You can gather that from your parents, or even if your parents are not so kind, you can always develop that. Second virtue is assertiveness. Your ability to tell the others what kind of capability you really have. Your ability to tell the others, not boasting about yourself, but your ability to make the other people understand what kind of skills you have, what kind of talents you have, and what kind of strengths you have. That is called as assertiveness. That comes out of education, that comes out of practice, that comes out of being a part of a particular team. Not tapping the chest that I'm a leader, but being a part of a particular team, assertiveness automatically comes. By chance, if you're a school teacher, arrange a lot of team activities amongst your children in the classroom, and you will see the assertiveness blossoming in the children's mind as and when the activities are going on. So just imagine, the person has got the kindness, the person is also assertive. Now what's the third virtue? The third virtue is courage. How much courage is you really wear when you are in the boyhood stage or in the girlhood stage? And what does courage really mean to you? How do you make the other people understand that you are a courageous person? So take these three virtues, the kindness, the assertiveness, and the courage. So when these three things are really coped up and combined together, I think we have got a wonderful format or the proper neural schema of a real human being that we are speaking about, right? You see people wearing t-shirts having the tabloid covers, being human. So if you like to be a human, you got to be kind, you got to be assertive, and you got to be courageous. So that's the first three heads of the 30 virtues that we were discussing about. Fourth virtue is gratitude, attitude of gratitude. The most important of all the 30, I would say. The ability to thank for all the things that you have. So many times we have, whenever I sit for depression redressal counseling, I first ask the person who is in this clutch of depression a simple question. What are the things that you can thank for? What are the things that you are gratified about? The person comes up with a list, and psychologically speaking, when the person speaks about all those elements in that list, the person eases up, enthusiasm automatically creeps in, and the depression mindset is diminished, basically. So the more you think about and thank about, the more you bring about. That's what they say. Now the fifth virtue is agreeableness. Most of the corporate problems and the root cause of all the conflicts in company atmosphere happens because of lack of agreeableness within the parties, within the respective persons. Sometimes they have lots of ideas spotted into the meeting, and sometimes they have different grounds of life, they have different schools of thoughts, and they are not able to sacrifice their schools of thoughts, and they are not able to go flexible according to the other person's beliefs. So this lack of agreeableness causes a lot of conflict into the business, into the family, into the relationships, and also into the classroom atmosphere when you talk about the students, both college students and the school grade students. So agreeableness is the next virtue that we are supposed to develop in all the people, exclusive to the children. The next virtue is moderation. Not getting too much extreme, not getting too much extreme in conversation, not getting too much extreme in thinking, negative thinking, not getting too much extreme in argument, not getting too much extreme in desires and wants, needs, not getting too much extreme in confrontation of people. So standing somewhere in the proper tolerance limit level is called as moderation. This is a very big virtue, and sometimes you find this lack of moderation causing enormous trouble in a teenager's life. So this particular virtue alone happens to be the most important key factor for a teenager. So you are supposed to be very much careful in talking to the teenagers, because lack of moderation as a virtue will lead and will misguide the teenager to have plenty of distractions. So keep in mind the other virtue, which is called as moderation. The next virtue is called as cleanliness, which happens to be the most important aware point. We have got a movement called as Swachh Bharat taken, and some people are implementing, most of the people are not implementing. So cleanliness is not only the societal cleanliness, it's all the cleanliness in thoughts, the cleanliness in heart, the cleanliness in feelings, and the cleanliness in thinking about others, helping others. So keeping the place where the people are living in clean, and keeping the work environment clean, keeping the study environment clean, all that counts. So the next virtue is cleanliness. The next virtue is confidence. The most repeated but most less used virtue is called as confidence. Confidence per se is a kind of a pretension for some people. For some people it's a kind of a skill. For some people it is a kind of a thinking. And to me, confidence is a virtue. It's actually a policy that has to be infringed into the mind. It happens to be a kind of a dictum that has to be instilled into the mind, that under no circumstance people have to give this up, because it's a kind of a thermostat that is deep down inside, and we are not supposed to let it go at any given point of time. So that's the next virtue, confidence. The next virtue that we are speaking about is forgiveness. The ability to forgive, and the ability to forget, and the ability to see the people's point of view, and the ability to try to give helping hand for the problem that the people have is a very important virtue. The next virtue that we are supposed to speak about right now, because it is a big need of the hour, because it's a big need of the hour in India, it is altruism. Contributing and expecting nothing in return. An altruist is a person who does many things to the others and expects nothing in return. So we have to develop this kind of virtue into the school children, basically. You know, I have been coming across various phases of school pupils' lives which does not have any sort of altruistic behavior. I've got to go to the school, a box life. You know, they travel in the box, they carry the food in the box, they think into the box, they don't go out of the box. It's called as box life. You know, William Blake, in psychological word, he calls it a box life. Box life means confining yourself into a particular limit. Altruist is a person who gets out of the box, and he tries to do a lot of things. He tries to contribute and help a lot of things, but he doesn't expect anything in return. That's called as altruism. The next virtue that we are speaking about is enthusiasm. The level of enthusiasm that you have when you are doing a task, the level of enthusiasm you have when you are making a talk, when you are having a conversation, the level of enthusiasm you have when you are planning for something, the level of enthusiasm you have when you are trying to face a problem, and when you are trying to deal with the problem, when you are trying to analyze the problem. Which brings us to the next virtue, called as the humility. The level of getting humbled to the people when you are in an office atmosphere, when you are in a business atmosphere, when you are in an atmosphere where there are plenty of teamwork is needed, or when you are a leader, whatever the title may be, whatever the label that you carry, being humble happens to be the most important virtue. So if you take the ancient times, people were known for their humbleness. All the emperors and all the people who were ruling plenty of provinces and the nations, they were sometimes in the history known for their humble behaviors towards the seniors, their humble behavior towards the subjects, their humble behavior towards the problems and war-footing situations they have faced. So the whole history speaks about humility. So humility is the next virtue that we need to really care about. The next virtue is discipline. The ability to be so much composed and so much organized, and being true to the self, and using the conscientiousness, using the conscience, and using the consciousness in this particular situation. Discipline is not something that is being carried from one place to the other like an Olympic torch. It cannot be given by someone to the other, but it can be nourished, it can be developed, it can be instilled into the mind of the person by, if not the parents are doing it, the school people, the faculty members in the school and the college. It can be really nourished. Seriously, it can be nourished, and it can be sown into the mind of the person by giving classical examples. Or discipline is one of the very important virtues which can be taught by being disciplined. The next virtue is trust. The ability to trust others, the ability to believe in the people, the ability to believe the circumstance, that it is definitely going to transfer on a proper basis to us, and the ability to believe in the level of people who are really having, thinking you as a trustworthy person. So the basic trust. The next virtue is love. The ability to show the patronage to the others, being kind. I mean, we saw the first ever virtue. It's called as the kindness, right? So love and kindness go hand in hand and they work in tandem. And I don't think I'll have to explain too much about this particular factor, which is the most important universal factor, the love as a virtue. Honesty is the next virtue. Well, a very interesting kind of a virtue. How many people are really practicing it? Are you practicing it? Am I practicing it? We have to really think about. We have to figure out a proper solution to be more honest. We are living in a hypocritic world, a poet said one time. But honesty has got something to do with being true to the self. And my kicker about honesty is, if I'm honest, if I'm disciplined, then my children will be really having a good time in the future. So honesty is something that if you give on a proper basis, your returns will be more. No selfishness attached into this, but being so much honest will really pay a lot of fruits to you. Having said that, the next virtue is generosity. Being so generous to people, being so generous to the team members, being so generous to the neighbors, being so generous to your peers, being so generous to the family members. Yes, of course, generosity has got a lot of sacrifice as a compulsory factor, but sacrificing something for the other people's happiness is called as generosity, and that gives you plenty of pleasure. So the next virtue is called as the compassion, the ability to see the problems of the others and solving the problems, contributing to them, giving to them. I mean, just a while ago I was speaking about altruism. The difference between altruism and compassion is, altruism is doing something and expecting nothing in return. But compassion is staying in that altruistic state. Every single moment, every single minute, staying in that altruistic state and thinking of the ways and means of increasing the standard of life of the other people, increasing the value of the other people. That's compassion. It's a very big trait and it's a very big virtue. The next virtue is contentment. Speaking about contentment, I would like to tell you that I'm recently researching on a concept called as the mindfulness. Dr. Deepak Chopra, late Dr. Wayne Dyer, they all used to speak about mindfulness quite a lot. Mindfulness is the ability to see that moment, live in that moment, and cherish that moment. Contentment is completely oriented towards this mindfulness. The level of wealth I have, the level of network I experience, the level of joy that I experience in whatever I do, and realizing that sweetness, that's called as contentment. The ability to live in a particular moment and being so happy with what is happening. It's a very important virtue. I, in fact, love that too much, and that's my personal favorite. The next virtue is perhaps a very important virtue for today's scenario: respect. Respect for the education, respect for the people who have got skills, respect for the other people's time, respect for the other people's value, respect for the other people's experience, and whatnot. Respect for the other people's experience, respect for the other people's exposure, and most importantly, the respect for the other people's ideas. Not only the respect for the age, and people so often confuse within themselves. When we speak about respect, we got to be very much careful with the way that the respect is being delivered and the way the respect is being received. So many times it becomes very tragic that the people will not be able to understand that you are respecting those people. So it is your responsibility to make them understand that you are actually having a lot of respect to them. Verbatim, explaining to them verbatim that I respect you. I've got a lot of respect for you. So it's a very important virtue. The next virtue, a very interesting virtue, is creativity. The ability to think on a creative basis. The ability to think on a different basis, using the left and right hemisphere of the brain on a proper basis. A creative person always finds ways and means of solving the problem and facing the challenges, and the creative person always tries to have a lot of insights. The person keeps on searching, the person keeps on involving himself into an adventurous journey of trying to find out new forms of thinking, new schools of thoughts, new insights, new ideas, meeting a lot of new people and whatnot. So creativity is the ability to keep yourself stronger and think on different lines for a particular problem or a particular challenge. The next virtue is modesty. Not boasting yourself. Recently I came across a lot of people in a particular meeting where we were all supposed to be in a gathering listening to a very big speaker, and where we were all supposed to be in a gathering, working on a particular common task, and I came across a lot of people who were much elder than me, both in terms of experience and age, and they were trying to speak about their past too much. It became so much ironical that they were speaking about the past, and they were really calling their lives as flawless. I was not prepared to believe that, although, but still I was keeping on listening to what they say. Those people are not modest, few of them, but many of the people are really modest. Now they were not able to identify the difference between boasting the experience and not speaking about the experience. See, few minutes back I spoke about a virtue called as assertiveness. Assertiveness is explaining what kind of a person you are and what kind of skills you are really possessing. But if that is on the too much basis, then it is absence of modesty, and modesty happens to be another virtue. So modesty is not boasting the self, not speaking about ourselves to the other people, not making a brigade of tom-tom to the other people about what kind of persons we really are, but standing somewhere in the middle and making people understand what really the value that we possess. The next virtue is patience. A lot of buzz around this word, and so many people's character is getting assassinated because of lack of this virtue. So many people lose their jobs, they lose their title, they lose their integrity, they lose their respect and whatnot. Patience. Patience can be acquired through having regular, proper living standards, like doing meditation, composing yourself. We just spoke about mindfulness, the art of developing the mindfulness, and exercising that particular trait too much will definitely benefit us by giving a lot of patience. So patience happens to be a very important virtue, and failing which the person will find the torso being very heavy to hold the head. So patience is next. The next virtue is integrity. Not being able to, sometimes people find it very difficult to keep their self-worth properly intact. They become slaves of the circumstances, they become slaves of the people, they become slaves of the responsibility, and they give themselves up. That's called as lack of integrity. And integrity happens to be a key virtue in your life. If you're really handling a load of responsibility, your personal integrity happens to be a very important thing, because unless you have the integrity, the other people who are depending upon you will not trust you. The next virtue is one of my other personal favorite, is moral responsibility. The ability to take responsibility of your society, the ability to take responsibility of your family, the ability to take responsibility of your goodwill, the other people's goodwill, the other people's respect, and being so much widespread everywhere, and being so much concerned with what is happening around you, being so much concerned about what is really troubling you and taking care of it, trying to solve all the problems that you have, trying to troubleshoot your life and bringing the life back to the track. That's called as moral responsibility, and doing the same with the others also, by ensuring that the other people are also living proper lives. Moral responsibility. The next virtue is gentleness. Humble, gentle, enthusiastic, and with a lot of larger than life attitude. Imagine such a composition. It will be really nice, and it will be in fact very lethal. So gentleness happens to be a practice. It is an art. By trying to be gentle towards the other gender, trying to be gentle with the other community, trying to be gentle with one-to-one with the other person, trying to be gentle when you are really annoyed, when you are really irritated, when you are really abused. That's where the key lies. It's a very important virtue. The next virtue is justice. Being very justified, being on the correct level of evenness, not being so much outrageously one-sided, not partial, not be redundant. And sometimes you will have to give yourself up, sometimes you will have to loosen your desires and loosen the levels of benefits that you have for the sake of being justice. Doing that is called as justice, and not being worried about the benefit that you have, foregoing your benefits and trying to put yourself outside, keeping the other people inside. Very important quality, my dear friends. The other one is loyalty. Being so much loyal. Even when the other person is wrong in the insights, in the ideas and in the conversation, you try to be very much loyal to them, and you make the loyalty understood. You make the other people understand your loyalty, and then trying to tell them and make them understand that you are right and they were wrong. Now, loyalty is a very tricky kind of a virtue where you will have to sacrifice your acceptance level. Loyalty is just practiced exclusively for obtaining that win-win situation, that win-win solution. So, to obtain that win-win solution, you will have to come across these levels of steps called as lose-lose situation, lose-win situation, win-lose situation. And finally, you arrive at that win-win situation. So, loyalty is being thankful and being so much to the person and being countable. A very big practice that is. And if you practice that, you're one of the top. The second last virtue out of the 30 virtues that we were discussing about, you've got a lot of patience, right? So you've been listening to me for at least for the past 30-35 minutes. Yeah, coming back, the second last virtue is called as cooperation. Being able to cooperate, surpassing all the other people's weaknesses, forgiving all the other people's. We already spoke about a virtue called as forgiveness. Besides the level of immaturity that you have, besides the level of amateur behavior that the other people have, you try to put your hands together and trying to gel with each other and bringing the cooperation. It's a very important virtue and it is a need of the hour. Which brings me to the final virtue, is toleration. Tolerance and patience, two symmetrical factors, will take you to places. And you are able to tolerate the people's impatience, you are able to tolerate the other people's intolerance, you're able to tolerate the other people's miscommunication, the other people's lack of ideas, lack of insights, and you bring all these virtues that we have been speaking about. Toleration is the last virtue, the 30th virtue. If you have the other 29 virtues, the tolerance will automatically come, and then you can really transfer plenty of things, and you can really figure out solutions for any kind of problems that you are encountering. So, the 30 major virtue that we were speaking about. This list, my dear friends, is not an easy list to be infringed upon. But if you're really making a deliberate effort to bring up at least 10 or 15 virtues of this list into the fellow human beings and into the children that are around you and into the teammates that are around you, I think you are making a huge contribution for the welfare of the society and for the nation. It appears as to be a tiny speck, but if you're really doing it, you are making a major contribution for the welfare of the country. Having that hope, this video has a very big advantage for you. You can relook this video, you can retry the video anytime, and keep yourself abreast of all these virtues, keep yourself reminded about all these virtues, and make a difference. And I'll be meeting you in the next video. Thank you so much for the time. Live strong, live with passion.